Welcome to Hidden Treasures, where we tell stories of lost gold, lost mines, hidden treasures, and anything that just I might find interesting, and hopefully you find interesting. If you enjoyed the stories, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, leave comments. It really helps out. Thanks for watching. Today, we're going to be talking about 3 lost treasures in Illinois. Hope you enjoy. In 1848, a livestock farmer named Azariah Sweetin built a mansion in Walkerville Township in Greene County, Illinois. Azariah Sweetin was a very successful stockman, and he built an extravagant mansion. It was 3 stories tall, 3-foot thick walls. On the top floor was a ballroom, and in the basement was a stream that ran through the basement to keep the house cool. The ballroom on the 3rd floor was used for entertaining, but mostly just used for his farmhands to come by and throw parties. On July 4th, 1862, he was having a party, and 2 farmhands were there by the name of Henson and Isham. Henson and Isham were both farmhands that worked for Azariah Sweetin, and on this night they had had a few too many drinks. They got into an argument, and Isham believed that Henson was about to throw something at him or hit him with something, and Isham pulled out a knife and actually stabbed Henson in the back. Henson fell to the floor and actually laid there and bled to death on the floor in the ballroom. As a side note, the ghost of Henson allegedly guards the property and guards the treasure that we're about to talk about. So if you go there looking for it, then you might run into Henson's ghost. Again, Azariah Sweetin was a very successful stockman. And during the Civil War, as with most people during the Civil War, he didn't trust banks. So he had all of his money in gold coins, and he put the gold coins in jars and started burying them at various places around his property. For several years, Azariah Sweetin buried these jars of gold all around his property until in 1871, one day he was out riding a horse. The horse threw him off and he hit his head and suffered major brain damage. This brain damage actually caused memory loss, and he was unable to remember any of the places that he buried any of this gold. No one has ever reportedly found this gold, and as far as anybody knows, that gold is still out there somewhere today. In the early 1800s in Piatt County, near Arthur, Illinois, stood an army way station where all of the soldiers would gather, and this is where they would take breaks and generally have free time. Once a month, these soldiers would gather because it was payday. The locals in the area began to notice about the time that it was payday, and there were a few outlaws there that decided that they were going to rob the paymaster before the soldiers got there. Apparently, there was $286,000 in gold coins that was ready to be paid out to these soldiers once they arrived, and the paymaster had it with a few guardsmen, and they were just sitting at the way station. So the outlaws showed up and subdued the guards, subdued the paymaster, and started interrogating them, trying to find out where the $286,000 in gold coins that was payment for the soldiers was. The problem was that the townspeople all heard about the outlaws planning this heist, and so they tipped off the paymaster. The paymaster knew this was going to happen, so the paymaster and the guards actually buried the $286,000 worth of gold before the outlaws showed up. However, the paymaster and the guards would not give up the location of the gold, and unfortunately the outlaws killed them and then burned down the way station. That money has never been recovered. No one knows where it is. During the Civil War, the British held outposts in Illinois. In 1778, George Rogers Clark got permission from the governor of Virginia, Patrick Henry, to build a militia. Governor Henry commissioned Clark as a lieutenant colonel, and he was actually able to gather a sizable militia of 175 men. He was also given a sizable amount of silver to fund this expedition, of at least 1,200 pounds of silver, and in some reports, a lot more. One of the outposts that they were going to take was in a small village called Kaskasky. When they arrived there, they realized that they actually had a formidable opponent, and they thought that there was going to be a significant battle. So they went a little bit of ways near the Mississippi River, near a town called Stillville, where they buried the silver that they had in bottoms called the Big Mary Bottoms. So if you don't know what the bottoms are around creeks or rivers, they're low areas of land, low-lying land, where when it rains and it floods, the water comes up and floods the bottoms. This probably wasn't the best option to bury the treasure, because when they went back to attack the British outpost in Kaskaskia, it began to rain. By the time the attack was done and they won, they actually sent 2 men back to recover the silver, and when they got back there, the area was flooded. They had to wait several days, if not several weeks, in order for the water to come down, and when it did, they couldn't find where they had buried the 1,200 pounds of silver. There are reports of some of the troops coming back later and recovering the 1,200 pounds of silver, and there are also reports of natives that they had hired to help track and get them to Kaskaskia that came in after knowing where the silver was buried, that they came back several years later and took the 1,200 pounds. But there's no evidence that anyone has actually found the silver, and as far as anybody knows, it's still there. I hope you enjoyed the stories. If so, don't forget to like, leave comments, and subscribe, and it really helps out the channel. Thanks for watching.